In today's lecture, dear learners, we will be talking about creating value-oriented environment. We have already discussed identification of values and process of value development, wherein I have talked about the role of how the role of parents is very important, as well as what are the factors which influence value development, wherein I talked about the influence of traditions, the influence of environment in terms of the surroundings, the community. In today's lecture, I'll be talking, or I would in fact be elaborating more on how to create value oriented environment. Like I said in the previous lecture, week 11 would be consisting of part 1. Today is part 2 of week 11. Let me proceed. Parents are responsible for creating a value-oriented environment at home. So when we are talking about value-oriented environment, the first school of learning, which is the home, wherein the parents are responsible for creating a value-oriented environment. This is not an easy task. Each family member has to perform his duty or her duty well. During this venture, they are expected to complete certain tasks. This is not a unique way to perform these tasks. Therefore, there will be different opinions on the ways to perform a task. This causes conflicts in the family. No one knows the best way to resolve these conflicts. Each family member has a position. This position is reflected in the relationship among them. In a typical family, relationships are referred to as father, mother, son, daughter, brother, sister, husband, wife. The family may also have grandfather, grandmother, grandson, granddaughter, uncle, aunt, mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law, and so on. Their interaction with each other in day-to-day working determines the environment in the family. One has to very carefully observe the behavior among them. The quality of relationship between these family members determines the quality of values subscribed by the family. When we are talking about the dynamics in the family, each family member has a different disposition towards object, incidents, and life. The disposition determines the ways of thinking. The reality is viewed in a way, and it is related to other factors. This influences the home environment. The attitude towards life is reflected in the day-to-day functioning of the family members. Right or wrong is determined on this basis. The reality becomes a truth for the family members, and it is interpreted in this way. The sharing, caring, and believing all get affected by the attitude. The relationship among different family members gets influenced through love-hate feelings. The parents are responsible for maintaining a proper attitude towards life. So when we are talking about the dynamics between the members of the family, the most important dynamics in the family would be between the parents and the child, or the parents and the children. It is the parents who play a very significant role in inculcating values and creating an environment which is conducive for value development. And the dynamics in the family differs according to the position of the members in the family. Your dynamics with your grandparents, your dynamics with your uncle or aunt, your dynamics with other members of the family would be different. However, the most important influence that one can have, or the most important values one can inculcate, is through the parents. The life in the family is governed by different rules formed by the senior members. These rules are evolved on the basis of customs and traditions practiced by the family. Younger members of the family are expected to observe this rules which have boundaries. Any violation of these boundaries are viewed seriously and sanctions are imposed. The observance and reinforcement of these family customs and traditions become the foundation of values. So in a particular family, or I would say in fact in majority of the families, there are certain customs and traditions which are imposed in the family. These traditions would be respect to the elders, these tradition would be being polite to all, and also observing certain religious rituals and so on and so forth. So these are the values become their foundation of upbringing. So when we are talking about the parents' involvement, when we are talking about creating a conducive environment for values, it is very important that the parents inculcate these values in their child, because the children or the child can be molded by the parents initially, because they listen to the parents when they are young. As they become mature, it does not mean that they do not listen to the parents. However, during adolescence, during a stage when they are so much influenced by their peer group, it is always better that if you start young, if you from the very beginning inculcate or create a value oriented environment, the child would not succumb to peer pressure in future, the child would not reflect any bad behavior, the child would be respectful to all. So it is very important that parents' involvement should be always there throughout the life. Especially important is when the child is in the initial age of development. What are the ways by which parents can create a value oriented environment? You should know your word, you should know your child, you should know that your child is unique. Each child is unique. Have you ever wondered how many types of children there are? There is amazing diversity among children in a family. They are not only different in age but also in color and height. They are also different in likes and dislikes. One may like white clothes, others may like red ones. I have two children. I have two girls, one is 10-year-old, one is 7-year-old, and they are unique in their own way. They are different in the way they like their food, they are very different in the way they like to dress up, they are very different in the way they like to, you know, the serials or the programs that they watch on television. So what I would like to say is that each children is unique. They all have unique personality. One may like to eat potatoes, another may like to eat bread. Each child responds in a unique way to a situation. This response is based on the past experience. These responses are acquired by children during the day-to-day observation of incidents occurring in the family. A child is a keen observer of the behavior of the father and mother in day-to-day incidents. The understanding of a child will help the parents to mold his or her behavior in the desired direction as per the choice of the values and create a conducive environment in the family. So when I talk about each child having a unique personality, a child may be very shy, a child may be naughty, a child may be very hyper. So when you understand, as a parent, when you understand these behavioral aspects of your child, you would be able to mold their behavior according to the moral standards of the society. So it is very important to know your what, it is very important to know your child, to appreciate the uniqueness of each child. So when we talk about the role of parents, family is the basic unit in the fabric of society, and when a child is born into a family, the parents, like I said, are the they are the ones from which they learn the initial values, and they are the most important persons in his or her life. And when we talk about parents, when you talk about the role that they play, they are the ones who sustains us in times of stress, times of sickness, in times of ill health, in times of strain and adversity, and they are the ones who create bonds and they nurture and strengthen you. So when we talk about parents, they give you a lot of time, they give up a lot, they sacrifice a lot, and they take up this responsibility to bringing up the child. And so the responsibility of the parents are so great that they are also the ideal role models for their children. There is a very significant saying which states that there are no problem children but only problem parents, which means that, let me repeat, there are no problem children but only problem parents, which means that all children are born good, but if they are neglected and not provided with love and security, and their basic physical and emotional needs are not satisfied, they will not be able to grow into healthy, happy and balanced individuals. So this is why we keep saying that the role of the parents are very important. They are the ideal role models for the children. And when we are talking about parents, when children are born into the family for the child or for the children, the parents are the most important persons in their life. So this saying which says that there are no problem children but only problem parents, which means that all children are born good, but if they are neglected and if they are not provided with love and security, they will not grow up into healthy, happy or balanced individuals, and they would not be reflecting standards acquired from them by the society. So parents need to build strong bonds of warmth, love and friendship with their children right from the very beginning. And any amount of money given to a child cannot substitute for a parent's love, understanding and time. Children who have strong family bonds and good parental support are less likely to go astray. So a wholesome family environment is basic to the establishment of values for the children, as well as for the upbringing of the children, to create a value based environment. So what are the guidelines for parents? There are so many guidelines for parents. There may be many guidelines which I have missed out, but there are very few guidelines which I feel, dear learners, I should share to you. And there are so many other guidelines which I may not be sharing today, but you would know that there are so many other guidelines. But these are the few guidelines which I feel it is important for you to know or for me to know. So what are these guidelines to help parents to bring up their family in the right way? Right way in terms of reflecting good moral behavior, reflecting the moral standards of or the moral standards which are accepted by the society. These few guidelines are, always remember, you as a parent, you as a elderly member of the family are the role model for your child. Do not do anything which you do not want your child to emulate. Father and mother should speak the same language. They should discuss between themselves and frame simple values for the child to follow. So this is very important. When we are talking about parents being the role model, if you do not want your child to be aggressive, if you do not want your child to reflect that aggressive behavior, what they see in front of them. For example, if they see a very happy father and mother who talk to each other, who share everything, who laugh together, the child would feel that this is the role he or she should reflect in future. So the child, when he or she gets married, will reflect the same behavior with his or her spouse. It would lead to a loving relationship because the child sees this loving relationship in front of him. However, if the child sees a very aggressive behavior, especially a father verbally abusing the wife, that is the mother of the child, or if the child sees the father being physically violent towards the wife, the child growing up would feel that this is the standard, this is the behavior which he or she should reflect in future, because what he sees, what he sees in front of him, or he would feel that this is the right behavior. So in future he may reflect this behavior of being an aggressive or person. So it is very important for a child to see good behavior in front of him or her. Parents should be consistent in the observance of rules. It is very confusing for a child to be allowed to do something when the parents are in a good mood, and be punished for doing the same thing on another day when the parents are in a bad mood. Let's say you allow a child to touch a screen for 1 hour extra a day, but then after because you are in a very good mood, but the next day you are like, you scold him or her by saying, why did you touch the screen for another extra hour when I do not like you touching the screen, because the parents is in a bad mood. So for the child it is very confusing. One day the parents says that you can touch the screen for 1 extra hour. Another day the parents tell the child not to waste his or her time on the screen the next day. So when a parent talks about observance of rules, when a parent talks about screen time, for example, what screen time a child should have should be fixed by the parents, and whether he or she is in a good mood, whether he or she is very happy that day, what rule he or she has fixed should be maintained. No extra time should be given because of the happy mood of the child, or the happy mood of the parents. They should stick to rules. They should say rules. It's rule. This is the time you spend on the screen, and you should stick to the rule. Whether you get good results in your exam, or you have performed very well in certain extracurricular activities, rule is rule. This is the hour you should stick in doing so. This is the exact hours you should spend on the screen. When we talk about parents' involvement, one should spend as much time with their children as you possibly can. This is the age of technology. This is a time when every family member more or less would have mobile on their hand, or they would be having a desktop, they would be having a laptop, they would be having television. So it is very important that the parents should take out some time wherein they can have a family time. For example, it could be after dinner, when the parents would be let's say you spend 10-15 minutes of the child with your child. You may talk about or ask him or her about their day, or play games with them. You tell them you do not watch screen after dinner. Instead you can spend 10-15, half an hour, 1 hour. It is up to you, but then your children should know that you are there with them, you are willing to spend time with them. So they should get this idea that yes, my parents want to spend time with me, and spending time would be most of the family will have time after dinner, because both the parents may go to work or either one of the parent goes to work. However, when the father or mother comes back after dinner, especially when they have time, they can have a few games together. They can discuss about what they underwent during the day, how did they spend the day, or if the father or the mother is very busy, then once in a week they can go out for picnics, they can go out on holidays. If can family, they can go for family outings. The bottom line is you should spend as much as time with your children. Yes, you may tell your children, and you would have been telling children that you are working so hard to securing the future, you're working very hard to earn money for them. Yes, they understand that, but however, if you spend few precious time with your children, you would see the happiness in their face. They would feel that, you know, the parents, they can share everything with their parents, and by sharing their feelings and ideas with their parents would go a long way in overall development of personality of the child or the children. You should observe your children carefully and try to understand her special needs by taking to him her in confidence. Each child is different and should be handled in a different way. Give your approval and encouragement for all forms of positive behavior and help him, her or her to blossom. So in terms of giving encouragement, it could be just it could be your very young school going children able to speak or able to read a paragraph of his or her lesson. It could be solving an addition, a simple addition sum. It could be solving a simple subtraction. It could be reading a paragraph of Hindi literature. All these encouragement wherein you praise the child for reading so well, you give your approval of your child in reading so well. This will go a long way in building confidence in the child, because throughout your life, learning is a process which is a lifelong process. So no one is perfect. Some children may read well, some children may not read well, some children may write, their handwriting may be very good, some children may not be writing very well. However, if you see improvement in your child, if you see, it could be like I gave you an example of it could be just reading a simple paragraph in the English literature or the Hindi literature. If you give encouragement to the child, it will build confidence and it will lead to a overall development of the children. Do not compare your children. This is a very important point for parents. You should not compare your children. In the beginning, I talked about how every children is unique. Every children would have some talent or the other. These talent may not be in your face. In terms of these talent may not be what you can see. These talent may be not easily visible, but there are so many hidden talents that children have. They are unique in their own ways. So if you help them, if you encourage them, then they would be confident enough to share their talent, because there are so many children who have hidden talents. It could be talent in terms of sketching very well. It could be a talent in terms of able to memorize their subjects very fast, very quickly, and so on and so forth. So it is very important that you should not compare your children, or you should not compare your own children with other children. This may lead to jealousy and development of inferiority and superiority complexes. You should keep your child balanced. It is very important for parents to keep your child balanced. They should not compare you should not compare your own children. You should not compare your own children, or you should not compare your children with others. Accept each child as he or she is and find different ways to give recognition to the one who is not so bright academically. Observe national and other festivals in order to make children aware of their own culture and national heritage. Help your children to develop the sense of discrimination between right and wrong, thus develop their value judgment. Guide your children to have balanced schedule in their day-to-day life with time allotted for study, play and recreation. Permit your children to watch only wholesome programs on the TV and video, and always be aware of what your child is watching on the screen, because a lot of time children spend so much screen time, and these screen time may be for watching adult contents. It could be playing violent games which may affect their brain. So it is very important that you should allow children to watch only wholesome programs, and also you as a parents should be aware of what your children is on the screen. You should select suitable books for them to read and encourage them to remain in touch with important national and international events as they grow up. In recent times, we have been facing a lot of problem in terms of children spending a lot of time on screen. So as parents, you can lead by example by you can also avoid spending less screen time. This avoiding of the screen time or keeping away your mobile for half an hour or an hour, what the children will see that, oh, my father or mother or both my parents are not touching my their mobile, so I should also keep down my mobile. And during those time you can spend times with your children playing games or sharing jokes, or you can inculcate reading books, giving them books to read during this period. Train them to share the household chores and allot them special duties to perform. As they grow up, do not try to put pressure on your children to fulfill your own personal unfulfilled ambitions. For example, you may have wanted to become a lawyer or a doctor. You should not pressurize your child or your children to take up medicine or take up law because you wanted to become, you could not, and you force or you pressurize your child to take up this profession. Give them time. Give them time to select their career. Do not pressurize them. It may not be good for them. Your expectations on your child or children should be commensurate with their ability. Let your child choose his or her own career after procuring the necessary guidelines and discussion with him, the pros and cons of each profession. As he or she is growing up, keep an eye on his or her habits and friends. Peer group pressure exercised by wrong friends lead many an adolescent to experiment with drugs and alcohol, and if not check-in time, they may become addicts. So the parents should be very aware of their friends. They should be very aware of what they are watching in the screen. And as they become young adults, it is time to let them go gradually. You release your whole of them, but not release your complete whole of them, but then and respect them for their maturity. Give them more responsibility. Let them take their own decision, but be available to help if asked for. And your role now should be, when they grow up, when they mature, it should be that of a friend and a counselor. And at the appropriate time, you should allow him or her to choose his own life partner. Be ready to discuss and advise if sought by your sons or daughters. In total, in sum, The role of parents is indeed a difficult one. In these fast changing times, but parents should not lose heart. Love, concern and sacrifice very successfully bridge the generation gap. So if you give love, if you give time, if you give concern for your children or your child, ultimately this will be successful and it will bridge the generation gap. So I have talked about certain guidelines of how children should be guided by the parents. Dear learners, there are many other guidelines which I may not have discussed. These are the very few important guidelines that I have discussed, and I hope that these guidelines and this particular lecture would have helped you in some way or the other. Thank you so much for listening and taking part in the lecture.